She was already shouting before I even opened my truck door. "You can't park here. This is HOA property." Her voice cracked through the quiet morning like a car alarm. I stared at her, the woman in the pink sweater with a clipboard clutched to her chest. "Ma'am," I said slowly, "this is my driveway." She took a step forward, lips tight. "Not according to our records. You don't even live here legally." Then she pulled out a paper with a fake HOA logo, slapped it on my mailbox and said, "Consider this your final warning." I laughed under my breath, not because it was funny, but because I'd been expecting this. Ever since I bought this property 2 weeks ago, the neighbors whispered every time I walked by. I just didn't know one of them would act like she owned the whole street. She pulled out her phone, muttering, "Calling the cops. You'll be arrested for trespassing." I could feel my pulse steady, not quicken. I leaned against my truck and said, "Go ahead." A few minutes later, a patrol car pulled up, except something was off. The uniforms looked wrong. No city badge, just blank patches. The two men stepped out like they were ready for a movie scene. Karen, as I now realized she was, folded her arms proudly. "Officers, that's him. He's been living here illegally." I raised my hand slightly. "You boys from the county?" I asked. The taller one grunted. "We handle HOA enforcement." That made me smile. HOA enforcement? That wasn't a thing. Karen shouted again, "Arrest him already." I looked straight at her and said, calm as ever, "You sure you want to do that?" "Because I'm not in your HOA." I let it hang for a second, her eyes narrowing. "And you just called fake cops to my own land?" The taller man froze. The other one shifted uncomfortably. Karen blinked, confused. That's when I pulled out my phone and hit play. The live feed from my property cameras showing them stepping onto my driveway with fake badges. Her smile vanished. I didn't say another word. I just stared at her and waited for the real sirens to start echoing down the road. The real cops arrived faster than I expected. Lights flashing, tires screeching. The fake officers stiffened like statues trying to look official while Karen waved her clipboard like a victory flag. "Finally," she yelled. "Arrest him before he hurts someone." The real sergeant stepped out, calm but sharp-eyed. "Who exactly are we arresting?" he asked. Karen pointed straight at me. "That man. He broke into this property. He's been pretending to live here." The sergeant glanced at me. "You got any ID, sir?" "Yeah," I said, handing him my wallet. "Driver's license, deed papers, and before you ask, yes, that's my name on the title. Bought it 2 weeks ago. From the bank." He flipped through the documents, eyes narrowing when he saw the official county seal. Meanwhile, the fake cops shifted backward like they wanted to melt into the sidewalk. Karen crossed her arms again. "He forged those. I know the HOA president personally." The sergeant turned to her, voice flat. "Ma'am, there's no active HOA registered for this neighborhood." Not since 2019, her face went blank, then twisted. "That's not true. I run it." He looked over her shoulder at the two imposters. "And you two, badges, please." One of them mumbled something about private security, but it didn't matter. Within seconds, the real cops had them separated and handcuffed. Karen's face turned red like she'd swallowed fire. "This is a mistake," she screamed. "He's dangerous. You'll regret this." The sergeant ignored her and looked at me again. "You said you bought the place from the bank?" "Yeah," I replied quietly.
"Foreclosure sale."
"Guess the previous owner left a few enemies behind." Karen heard that and froze, her voice suddenly small. "Wait, foreclosure? From which bank?" I watched her crumble as I said, "First State Federal. They sold this entire block to me." Her clipboard slipped from her hand, hitting the pavement with a sharp crack. She whispered almost to herself, "You're lying." I stepped closer, voice steady. "No, Karen, you're living on my land." Karen's mouth hung open, but no words came out. The real cops exchanged quick looks, one of them whispering something to the sergeant. The fake officers were already being loaded into the back of the patrol car, their heads down. I stood there quietly, watching her face shift from rage to disbelief to something close to fear. She took a shaky breath and said, No, you can't own my home. I've lived here for 15 years. I kept my tone calm. Then maybe you should have checked the notice the bank sent before ignoring it." I wasn't trying to humiliate her, but the truth was, she had been harassing me for days, claiming I didn't belong here. The sergeant stepped between us. "Ma'am, unless you have proof of ownership, you might want to talk to your lawyer." Karen's hands trembled. "I am the HOA president," she said again, as if the words could fix everything. "I make the rules here." I sighed, pulling out my phone again. You might want to sit down for this. I tapped the screen and showed her an email. Official, time-stamped, with the county's property records attached. See this line right here? Lot 18 through 24, that includes your house, all signed over to me. She stared at the screen like it was written in another language. Then she whispered, You bought everything? Not by choice, I said. The bank offered the whole block at once. I didn't even know who lived here, until you started taping fake HOA notices on my door. Karen stumbled back a step. The real cops were watching closely now, trying not to react. The sergeant cleared his throat. Sir, we'll file charges for impersonation and trespassing against the individuals we detained. Do you want to press charges on her too? For a moment, I thought about it. I remembered how she yelled, how she called those fake cops, how she made me feel like a criminal on my own land. Then I said quietly, Not yet. Karen looked confused. Why not? I leaned in just a little. Because I want you to see what real authority looks like, before I decide how kind I'm feeling. Her face went pale. And then as the real patrol cars drove away, my phone buzzed, a notification from my lawyer. It said ownership confirmation complete, transfer effective immediately. The timing couldn't have been better. I looked at her one last time and said, Welcome to your new landlord's driveway. She didn't move. For the first time since I met her, Karen was silent. The clipboard lay broken at her feet, her perfectly manicured hands shaking as she stared at the ground. This can't be happening, she whispered. You don't understand what you're doing. I folded my arms. Actually, I do. I bought this land legally. You've been bullying people here for years, pretending to be some HOA queen. It ends today. Her eyes flicked up, and for a moment I saw something different. Not anger, but panic. You don't know who I am, she said slowly. I can ruin you, I couldn't help but smile. You already tried. Didn't work. Just then, my neighbor, Mr. Lopez, stepped out from his porch. He'd been watching everything. About time someone stood up to her, he said loud enough for everyone to hear. She made me paint my fence 3 times last year. Said it wasn't the approved shade of brown. A few more doors opened. Faces appeared. People who'd stayed quiet before now looked relieved, even a little hopeful. Karen turned around, realizing for the first time that her audience wasn't with her anymore. This is my neighborhood, she shouted, voice cracking. You all agreed to the HOA rules. No, Mr. Lopez said. You printed those rules yourself. The air went heavy. Karen blinked fast, then pointed at me again. He's lying. He's just trying to... But before she could finish, another car pulled up. This one sleek, black-tinted windows. Not a police car, but official enough to make her stop mid-sentence. A man in a gray suit stepped out holding a leather folder. Ma'am, he said, I'm from First State Federal Bank. We need to discuss your property status. Karen's face drained of color. Right now? Yes, right now, he replied. You've been sent multiple foreclosure notices. We also have reports of you attempting to impersonate HOA authority. You might want to come with me, the neighbors murmured. She looked around, desperate, but no one spoke up for her. Not this time. I watched quietly as the man handed her a packet of papers. She didn't even look at me. She just stood there, frozen, the weight of everything crashing down. Before leaving, the man turned to me and nodded. Thank you for your patience, sir. We'll handle the rest. I gave a small nod back. Take your time. She's been busy. As Karen stepped toward the car, shoulders shaking, she turned once more and hissed, You'll regret this. You don't know what's coming. I smiled faintly. Maybe. But you still don't know who you're talking to. And for the first time, I meant every word of it. That night, the street was quiet for the first time since I'd moved in. No more fake notices taped to doors. No more HOA inspection lights flashing in the dark. Just silence. And the low hum of my security cameras, which I'd left running for a reason. I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the blinking red light on the camera pole across the street. The footage from earlier kept replaying in my head. Karen calling those fake cops, the panic on her face when the truth hit her. But something still felt unfinished. Around midnight, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered anyway. A voice I didn't recognize said quietly, You don't belong there. Leave before it's too late. Then the line went dead. I stared at the phone for a moment, then replayed the number. Blocked, no caller ID. My gut told me it wasn't random. Karen had sounded shaken earlier, but not beaten. Maybe she had someone else behind her. I pulled up the camera feed again. Everything looked normal, until one motion sensor triggered at the edge of the property. A dark figure moved near Karen's house, carrying something that glimmered in the light. I zoomed in. It was a man in a dark jacket with the same fake HOA logo she'd used. He was tearing down my private property sign. I grabbed my flashlight and headed out. The air was cold, the gravel crunching under my boots. When I reached the edge of the driveway, he froze, like he hadn't expected me to actually show up. "Can I help you?" I asked, light aimed straight at his chest. He muttered, "You're not supposed to be here anymore." I stepped closer. "You sound like you work for her." He didn't answer, just turned to run, but tripped on the curb, dropping a folder. Papers scattered across the ground. I picked one up. It was a fake eviction notice, with my name printed on it. And at the bottom, in Karen's handwriting, were 3 words that made my stomach twist. Phase 2 begins. The man scrambled up, vanished between the houses, leaving his car door wide open and engine running. I looked inside. The glove compartment was stuffed with printed HOA forms, blank but stamped, the same seal she'd been using. Only this time there were maps attached, highlighting several homes on the street. Whatever Karen was planning, it wasn't just about me, and I wasn't about to wait for her next move. By morning, the neighborhood felt wrong again. Windows that were open last night were shut tight. Curtains twitched when I walked past. Something had shifted. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore, it was scared. I went straight to the county office downtown, folder in hand. The clerk barely glanced up when I said my name, but the second she typed it into her computer, her eyebrows shot up. "Sir, your property's just got flagged." "Flagged for what?" I asked. She turned the monitor slightly. "For HOA violations." But she frowned. "There's no HOA registered here." I leaned in. "That's because someone's creating one from thin air." The clerk hesitated, then lowered her voice. "You didn't hear this from me, but a woman came in yesterday asking for old HOA documents. Said she was reinstating a community order. She had fake letters of approval, even a forged county signature. Karen." I thanked her quietly and left, my pulse steady, but my mind racing. She was trying to make the fake HOA real again, through paperwork this time. And if she pulled it off, she could trap every homeowner here under her rules, even me. When I got back, there was a crowd outside. A few neighbors stood near my mailbox whispering. One of them pointed to a new sign hammered into the grass. "HOA under reinstatement. Violations will be enforced." I ripped the sign out and threw it onto the sidewalk. Mr. Lopez came over, looking nervous. "She was here early," he said. "Brought some people with her. Claimed she's meeting with a judge next week." "Judge?" I repeated. He nodded. "Said she's going to get legal control of the block again?" For a second, I almost laughed. But then I noticed something else. Small cameras hidden in the bushes across the street aimed at my house. New ones. Expensive ones. I picked one up and checked the brand. Government issue. That didn't make sense. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number again. "Stop digging. You're in deeper than you think." Attached was a photo. A blurry shot of me standing on my porch, from across the street. That's when I realized this wasn't just Karen's obsession anymore. Someone else wanted me gone. And they were watching everything. That night, I barely slept. Every sound made me check the window. Every flicker of light felt like eyes. Around 2 a.m., I saw a car parked across the street. Engine off, lights out. Same dark sedan that had followed me from the county office earlier. I stepped outside quietly, staying in the shadows. The car didn't move. I took out my phone, opened my security app, and pulled up the newest camera feed. There it was, in the same car, same plates, same man behind the wheel. I zoomed in just as he looked straight at the lens. He smiled. I decided to end this game by sunrise. I was at the sheriff's office. Sergeant Miller, the same one who arrested the fake cops, listened carefully as I explained everything. The fake reinstatement, the threats, the surveillance cameras, the car. He leaned back, jaw tight. "This is bigger than a neighborhood feud," he said. "We've had reports about these fake HOAs popping up across the county. Someone's been forging property transfers to take land illegally." My stomach dropped. "So Karen's working for them?" He nodded slowly. Looks like she's part of it. A recruiter, maybe. But whoever's running it, they've got real money behind them. He tapped his pen, thinking. You said you own those lots through the bank sale? Yeah. Then they probably didn't expect you to actually live there. You messed up their plan. Before I could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, frowned, then turned it toward me. A live feed of my property flashing red. That's your house, right? I didn't even wait for permission. I grabbed my truck keys and ran. When I got back, 2 men in suits were standing on my porch holding clipboards. Karen stood behind them, a smug smile plastered across her face. You're trespassing again, she said sweetly. These gentlemen are here to evict you. I didn't reply. I just walked past her, straight to the door, and unlocked it. Because, of course, the key still worked. One of the men cleared his throat. Sir, we have new documentation. I cut him off. Show me. He handed over the papers. They looked official, but the seal, the same fake one again. This time, though, I was ready. I pulled a small drive from my pocket and plugged it into my laptop inside. The feed popped up instantly, audio recordings from my cameras. The clip played loud enough for all of them to hear. Karen's voice last night yelling into her phone, "Make the fake deed ready. I want him out before he figures out who owns us." The men froze. Karen went pale again. Then behind me, a familiar voice said, "That's enough." It was Sergeant Miller and half a dozen real deputies stepping out from behind the trees. Karen's eyes widened. You set me up? I looked at her calmly. No, you did that all by yourself. Karen's scream cut through the morning like glass shattering. She tried to bolt toward her house, but 2 deputies caught her before she made it off the porch. The men in suits dropped their clipboards, hands up, their fake confidence gone. Sergeant Miller nodded at me, then turned to his team. Cuff all 3. Impersonation, forgery, fraud, and trespassing. Karen struggled against the handcuffs, spitting words like venom. You think you've won? You don't understand. They'll come for you, too. I stepped closer. Then I'll be ready. Her eyes were wild now, desperate. You ruined everything. I stared at her for a long moment. No, Karen, you ruined everyone else's peace. The deputies led her toward the patrol car. The neighborhood gathered again, same faces as before, but this time they weren't afraid. Mr. Lopez walked up beside me, shaking his head. Didn't think I'd see the day, he said. I gave a small smile. Me neither. Miller handed me a folder. Evidence, he said. Inside were all the documents Karen had faked. Deeds, fake HOA forms, even photos of other houses marked for takeover. Looks like she was working with a group trying to scam foreclosed properties, he explained. You just happened to expose them first. As the patrol cars drove off, the whole street seemed to breathe again. Kids came out on bikes. Someone turned on a lawnmower. Normal life returned inch by inch. Later that evening, I stood on my porch, the sun melting behind the hills. My phone buzzed again, this time from the bank. A message from the same official who'd handed Karen her foreclosure papers. Investigation closed. All properties cleared. You're the rightful owner. For a long moment, I didn't move. Then I smiled, finally letting the tension fall away. I looked down the quiet street, lights flickering on one by one. For the first time, it felt like home. Then, almost to myself, I said, I didn't fight for this country to be told I can't live on my own land. And somewhere behind me, the old HOA sign creaked in the wind, half broken, half gone, like the last piece of her control fading into the dirt. Freedom never sounded so quiet. HOA called the cops. When I said, I'm not in your HOA, didn't know I'm their new landlord.